weaponizing words. And, I've talked about this before on this program, so I'm not going to, dwell on it at great length. But, back in the 50s, Joe McCarthy had this shtick of don't say Democratic Party, instead say Democrat Party with an emphasis on the rat. And, of course, the Democrat Party slur goes back to the Civil War, but it really had pretty much died out until Joe McCarthy revived it in the 1950s. And, he was on TV literally every day for 2 months with his hearings, his House Un-American Activities Committee, or the Army McCarthy hearings, or whatever they were called. And he would constantly refer to it as the Democrat Party. And he was principally going after gays and communists. Those were his two enemies, as it were. Gay men and communists, and he was finding them everywhere, which was particularly ironic given that his partner in crime was Roy Cohn, who himself was a gay man who died of AIDS. But Roy Cohn was perfectly happy to destroy gay men if it meant more political power for his buddy Joe McCarthy, which was really a tragedy. But back in 1956, Dwight Eisenhower, this was the same year that McCarthy was doing this stuff, spoke to a group of Republican women and in Washington, D.C., and he said, if a political party does not have its foundation in the determination to advance a cause that is right and that is moral, then it is not a political party. It is merely a conspiracy to seize power. And the argument that I'm making is that that is now the Republican Party, that it's really not a legitimate political party any longer. Two things that obviously the lack of policy and, the promotion of racism and all these things, I think, give some cogency to that argument. But beyond that, I would say that people like, this notorious South Carolina racist Nancy Mace, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, going on Fox so-called news and actually it was on CNN, and intentionally mispronouncing Kamala Harris's name, just like Donald Trump intentionally mispronounces his name, her name, excuse me. And when Nancy Mace was called on this by one of the panelists on CNN on this panel that she was part of, she snapped back and said, I'll pronounce her name any way I want. And, of course, I suppose that's your right, but the person who called her out on it, followed up and said, well, this is pretty racist of you, isn't it? Or words to that effect. And, of course, it is. But here we have Republicans who refuse to refer to the Democratic Party by its actual name, and instead call it the Democrat Party, something that literally does not exist. There is no Democrat Party in America. And who refer to Kamala Harris with a series of mispronunciations of her first name that are designed to, I would argue, amplify her difference, shall we say, from, white European, ethnically European Americans. Have you noticed that she's got a funny first name? Have you noticed that her skin is a little browner than the white people? There must be something going on here. I mean, this is basically the message that Nancy Mace was trying to convey. It's the message that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are trying to convey. We saw J.D. Vance, along these same lines a couple of days ago, talking about how his wife has 3 children, and she's not converted from Hinduism to Catholicism, and he seems to be quite unhappy about that, although she will go to the Catholic Church with him and the kids. So it's like, really? He doesn't have kids? His wife has 3 kids? It's just these weird notions of the world and how it works that we're seeing in the GOP. But this particular thing, I think, is particularly pernicious. Democrat Party is a slur. Mispronouncing Kamala Harris's name is a slur. When a political party, and if this was just an occasional thing or just some, rando, I wouldn't be talking like this. But you can watch Fox News for any random 15 minutes, and you will hear the Democrat Party slur over and over and over again, and you will hear Kamala Harris's name mispronounced over and over again. And these people know better. They know exactly what they're doing. And I don't hear Democrats slurring the Republican Party. We're not calling them the repukes or the repubes or the, you know, I mean, I've seen these things. They tend to pop up a lot over Democratic underground where there's some pretty uninhibited people. God bless them. But, you know, generally speaking, you will never hear a Democratic politician mispronouncing the name of a Republican politician or misnaming the Republican Party. Because the Democratic Party is a serious political party. It's a real political party. They actually care about the outcome of what they're doing. They have real policy proposals. And the Republican Party has become, you know, to paraphrase Dwight Eisenhower, merely a conspiracy to seize power. And I would add, to seize wealth. And so I just, you know, I wanted to put that marker down. And in my article, I wrap it up by saying, you know, the media really needs to start calling this stuff out. These people have been getting away with this for decades, to the point where occasionally the New York Times will even refer to the Democrat Party. I mean, I caught that a couple of months ago in an article where some writer in the New York Times, and it wasn't an op-ed writer, it was a reporter, said something about the Democrat Party. There's no such thing. It's a slur. It's a Joe McCarthy slur. So, hey, get with the program, would you? And we need to, you and I need to be calling out the media when they use these kinds of slurs.